All right, thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. I am Mike, as always, and with me is Dustin. How you doing, Dustin?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
And we've got... we were going to bill you as a special guest star, but Double D, you said you wanted to be a host, so you're going to be the new third host of Remake Rewind, is that correct?
That sounds amazing.
So for those of you who've been listening for a while, you guys might recognize David Double D Delgado from our RoboCop episode.
Yeah,
that
dude,
was him. He was our expert.
Connoisseur.
Yep. So yeah, he's gonna be our new host. You're gonna be hearing a lot more of Double D. We're really happy to have you back, man.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy these guys let to listen to my amazing voice now.
Yeah, it's sexy, man. I miss it. You know what really bums me out, guys?
What?
So you guys are in San Francisco, and I was in San Francisco this weekend. And
it's great here. Why does that bum you out?
Because I missed you guys. I was in the city, and I didn't get to see you guys.
Yeah, that sucks.
There was no time.
There was no time. But we made time to talk tonight about two pretty crazy movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to talk about them. Just, for our listeners, they're, a trigger warning. Both of these movies that we are going to be talking about tonight, a big part of the plot revolves around a convicted rapist going after a child. So if anybody's like a victim of sexual assault or anything like that, or, the topic of rape and just domestic violence or anything like that just makes you uncomfortable, this might be an episode that you want to skip. But these movies definitely have some merit to them. The remake of Cape Fear in 1991. Did I say the name of the movies?
You have not yet said the name of the movies.
So we are going to be
we've put up a large warning.
Yeah, but we watched Cape Fear, the original one starring Gregory Peck and Robert Meacham, and the 1991 remake starring Nick Nolte and Robert De Niro. These movies definitely have some merit. The Robert De Niro Max Cady actually was nominated for an Academy Award. So there's definitely some merits to talking about these movies. Like, we're not going out of our way to, offend anybody, but these movies were very interesting to watch and definitely worth talking about. But we do want to give our listeners that out if they're going to, have any kind of distress listening to this episode. So at this point, we're going to dive in. You guys have been warned, so please don't attack us on Twitter or anything like that. So yeah, I'm ready to talk about it.
That was a pretty good PSA. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, You're welcome.
Should I be scared to even be talking about these movies now?
We should be on our toes. No.
Good God.
We're not gonna make any kind of rape jokes or anything like that. We're just gonna talk about the movie. We're still gonna be our funny selves. Like, there's definitely things that we can laugh at with these movies, like in terms of like acting choices and stuff like that. And weird cuts, like Scorsese directed the remake, and he did some weird, interesting things. But I've never seen any of these movies, either one of them. So I was going in and completely blind, and I was actually really disturbed by these movies.
They're very upsetting, yeah.
Dude, these were the first time watching the movies as well for me. I actually watched the newer one first, and then went back to the original.
Ooh, you did that. Interesting.
I did. I like to switch it up.
So how do you feel about your first episode back, picking, having this as the first movie back?
I mean, it's definitely different from my comfort zone of the sci-fi for sure. But I mean, watching both movies, these were both definitely intense movies, and I was onto them like the entire time. I did not want to stop watching.
Yeah, me neither. What about you, Dustin?
They're intense the whole time.
The whole time.
Is what I think, like, from the way they make these movies, like, both of them, I think, that's kind of the similar thing, is, like, you're on edge and really uncomfortable the entire movie.
Yeah, it did not let up at all.
No. And, like, even at the end when it's over, we don't typically like to talk about the movies until we're ready to record, but I think Dustin and I were both disturbed enough by these movies that, how many phone conversations do we have about them?
Two or three.
Just trying to break down what we saw and just...
I think that's the thing, is like, they're effective for sure. Both of them are. Like,
so
they're just effective in a very unsettling, very seedy, gross kind of way.
No, dude, right off the bat, they're just grabbing your attention.
The big things that I want to talk about, like, I definitely want to talk about the different versions of Max Cady and Sam Bowden, and just the differences of the 90s one. Like, they're very similar movies, kind of like when we did True Grit. Like, the meat and bones were mostly the same, but there was a few little like flourishes that made it different. This one's these two movies were very, very similar, but then just a few random things different in the 90s one, and yeah, it's weird. So
I feel like watching the newer one, it was almost like watching an unabridged version of the original.
Yeah, totally.
It was definitely
raw.
a little more fleshed out for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So we're gonna try something different this episode. Instead of spending 10 minutes or so summarizing the movie, we're just gonna go from IMDb and pick one of the synopses. So this synopsis was written by Chris Holland. For the original one, it says, small-town lawyer Sam Bowden's life becomes torturous when Max Cady re-enters his life. Cady went to jail for 8 years after Bowden testified that Cady attacked a young woman. Now that Cady has been released, he begins to terrorize the Bowden and his family. That doesn't even make any sense. Very poorly written, particularly targeting Bowden's daughter, Nancy. Initially, Cady uses his newfound knowledge of law learned in prison to annoy the Bowdens. Poisons the family dog. Who's next?
Whoa. I don't really like that there's a little who's next at the end there.
Almost sounds like
this movie doesn't deserve a who's next. Like, oh, he's just killing everybody. Who's next? Like,
it almost sounds like
it's
a
not
comedy.
Funny or silly at all.
No. And then, like, the way this is written, learned in prison in quotation marks.
Yeah, or it's in parentheses. It's in parentheses.
Yeah, parentheses.
Self-taught in prison.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important to
right.
note, important to note here, though, that they do put in that Cady has been released and is terrorizing Bowden because he testified that Cady attacked a young woman.
Yeah. Well, that's another interesting thing. Like, just right off the bat, a big difference between the 62 version and the 1991 is they don't use the word rape in the original one, even though it's very heavily implied that's what he did. But they just said assault or attacked multiple times. In the 1991 version, they straight up say he's a rapist.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty interesting thing. Like, this movie being made in 1962 is pretty provocative.
Oh, dude, it's way out there. Yeah, it's
like
definitely...
I really didn't expect it to be as dark as it was for that time.
It was pretty blunt about everything, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Man, I don't even know where to begin with this movie because it really, really did make me uncomfortable watching it the entire time. But this film was made really, really strangely. Like, they made it to look like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, even though he didn't direct this. He was supposed to direct it originally, but for whatever reason didn't. And they got some other guy. I don't care what his name is.
No cares.
Okay. But
he did a good job.
He did a good job. Like, weird lighting, stuff like that, weird shadows, and just the weird melodramatic music.
Yeah.
Which worked very, very well for this one in the 60s.
The director is J. Lee Thompson.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. He directed Cape Fear. He directed the shit out of it.
He directed the shit out of this movie. No, I think like everything worked really, really well in this movie. Like, the music, while very melodramatic, worked for this movie very, very well. What do you guys want to talk about this movie?
Well, I think we should talk about the characters, right? Like, we got,
Gregory Peck as Sam Bowden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Robert Mitchum, I think we have to compare the characters across
We
both
absolutely
movies.
do.
I think the family, like the wife and the kid.
Oh, definitely of note.
Like, there's not that many characters in this
No,
movie.
there's not. You had some interesting things to say about Cady. So why don't you just kind of tell us about Cady? Justin?
Well, I found in this one, obviously he's very intimidating, but like the vendetta because someone witnessed you do a crime and like you're gonna go after that guy 8 years later, fixate on him, like. I don't know. It makes it scarier for some reason. Like, it makes it like this weird, random event in this troubled man's life that, like, oh, you did it all. And it's like, no, dude, I totally didn't. Like, you know that Sam Bowden doesn't deserve this.
Or the prosecutor or even the original victim.
That's because he was the catalyst, man. He was the one that saw it happen.
Well, I think what made the difference... And, obviously when we move into the 1991 one, we'll probably dive back into this. But in this one, he wasn't just the witness, he also stopped it. So he stumbled across it, saw it, and made sure that the incident stopped. I don't think he necessarily got involved himself, but he got, you know, a hold of the police or whatever, and that caused it to stop. So he also, like, maybe didn't go through 100% with the assault. And so maybe that's part of it, is he sees it as, not only did you testify against me, but you stopped me from doing it. Like, so I didn't get
I think he's more mad that he lost all that time. He's more mad that he got
There's
in trouble.
Pretty good, I think it's a bit of everything.
I don't know. It's a ton of stuff, and it makes it very scary, and like a kind of it's scarier because it's believable, I guess. You know, like this is just a guy trying to fuck up your life. And it's really scary.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. It's just fucking following him around and making him scared.
Well,
if I had to deal with that, I would not deal well with that.
No,
if I had some asshole following me around, trying to creep me out and threatening to rape my child, that'd be a big problem.
That was the thing that was weird about this movie. In many regards, I actually felt like this Katie was the more tame Katie. But then in other regards, not so at all. Like, he seemed initially like he could just be like a creepy uncle.
That's pretty accurate.
Not for long.
I think it was the high tucked in pants and the beige jacket.
And the party shirts, like the Hawaiian floral shirts.
Yeah.
And the way he seemed, like, he was very I don't want to say charismatic, but like the way he came off when anytime he was confronted by either the police or a lawyer, and he was just like, I'm being cooperative at that, and he just came off as this person who was just cheesy and just like, I didn't do anything, like I just, you know, I'm the crazy uncle, I'm Uncle Joe, don't mess with me, kind of thing. I don't know.
You had a weird Uncle Joe.
Yeah. I didn't actually have an Uncle Joe. I'm just saying, like that stereotypical like uncle you see in like movies and stuff, like the uncle who's kind of a pervert.
Yeah,
I haven't seen a lot of uncles that remind me of Max Cady.
I mean, at the beginning, until he goes like completely crazy, because then eventually at the point, like when he sees them at the docks, and that was like the first like overtly creepy thing he said about the daughter, when he sees the daughter and he's like, she's getting to be real juicy like her mother or something.
He was just staring at her for a little while,
and he's just staring at her on the boat. And that's like the first time I got super uncomfortable with him, because it's like, oh no, he's definitely wants to go after this 15-year-old girl.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was so disturbing. It was just so disturbing.
Just brutal.
And the thing that was really weird about that girl is she could be anywhere from like 14 to 40.
Yeah, I could not.
I could not peg that girl's age. I know she's supposed to be 14, but there was just something that made it really disturbing too. I think just the actress they got to play her made it even weirder, just because. Oh,
her head was way too big for her body.
She kind of had like the same haircut that the apes have in the 1960s Planet of the Apes.
She was just hard to look at.
Yeah. Aw.
But like in a way that you're really confused.
Very confused. Maybe that's what was wrong with Max Cady. He was just confused.
I don't know.
So
the other thing. So let's talk about Sam. Let's talk about.
Well, we haven't even really got to the meat of Katie. Like, so he spent 8 years in prison. He learned all about law, became his own lawyer, and got himself out of prison. But beyond that, he also made a point of. He's almost like how we have like all these movie villains nowadays. When you have like Javier Bardem's character in Skyfall, and like Heath Ledger's the Joker, where like they have these like elaborate plans where they want to get caught as part of their end game, so they can ultimately get away with other stuff.
I mean, the big thing that it reminded me of, I mean, it's obviously a newer movie, but Law Abiding Citizen, where I was getting heavy tones of.
Yes, with Gerard Butler. Yeah, very much so. Like within that part where he's getting interrogated, and he makes a point of like, I'm not a vagrant. Look at this. I've got $5,000.
Well, he's been in jail, being pissed, learning the law, like to go mess up a lawyer's life.
Yeah.
And then he gets himself, like, he does these small crimes like killing the dog. Like, he kills the dog, but he does it in such a way that there's no evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So that way he purposely gets run-ins with the law, so that way it looks like there's a pattern of them coming after him. So that way down the line, like, a lawyer basically gets a restraining, like, there's not a restraining, but a lawyer's like, another lawyer's like, hey, Bowden, you are causing them to go after him. This is unfair. It's harassment. So if at that point the cops were like, we can't do anything with this guy unless we catch him in the act. So like he got it set up where basically he could do whatever he wants. Like he was smart enough to do that.
Almost protected, yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
He had a great plan.
great plan.
It's like a Batman villain, kind of.
That's what I was saying, like the Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight. Like,
I know, that's
very
why I
much so.
said that.
It's
It
crazy.
was very original thought from Dustin there.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I just took it. I took it.
It's his now.
Stole it.
Oh man, like then, oh man. And the only thing that kind of didn't make sense to me with him was initially, like when he went after that one girl,
Yeah.
and like obviously he raped her, but you know they obviously didn't show that in the movie. Like, why would he take that chance?
Especially if he knew someone was
Dude, I don't
tailing
know, man.
Exactly, because he did know that guy was tailing him, and then his whole thing at the end, how they had to trick him into going after them.
Yeah.
This whole elaborate plan. Like, I guess we should talk about Sam first, and then we'll go into that plan. But
Yeah,
God, he was a really smart, creepy villain. Like, I feel uncomfortable even talking about him still. And it's been like a week since I've watched these movies.
I think it's unsettling because it's like, you know, like when you watch movies, like you like to see people, you know, do a caper. You know what I mean? Like you want to see it, and then you're watching this guy, and he's doing a caper, and he's really kicking ass at it. But then it's like, oh, but he's doing it to rape.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you watch something like
I kind of hate myself
The
for
Italian
admiring
Job
his
or
villain
something
plan.
like that. You want them to get away with it, even though they're technically criminals. Like, it's not
Yeah.
the same way with this. It's like, no, I don't want him to get away. What's he gonna
Catch
keep
him!
doing?
Stop him!
Oh man. So I guess we should talk about Sam, because I really want to talk about Sam's interactions with Katie. I think there's some really great quotes in this movie, and yeah, let's just talk about Sam.
I like the Sam in the 62. I mean, he was very like a strong, confident lawyer, and I appreciated that. Like he was gonna take over and like protect his family. He was all about it.
Yeah, and I think it was like a slower build up to it also, right? I think this in the Gregory Peck one seems to have like more faith in the law to take care of this before he reaches his breaking point.
Yeah,
and, like
absolutely.
starts doing illegal stuff, you know, to combat the dude. And so like I would agree with David. I think Gregory Peck was a stronger Sam Bowden.
Yeah,
I agree. It was a little bit of a slow burn. He contacted the cops, and he went through that. What was interesting is like the dynamic with the police in this one. So he calls the police initially. They do the whole strip search thing, try to see if they can get him for vagrancy, all these different things. And then later on in the movie, when they have that meeting with the other lawyer, it turns out like the cops were trying, like they really were legitimately trying to get him on something. So they're arrested. So he was all on board with that. And then finally he reached a breaking point. He's like, what am I supposed to do? And the police officer was like, get a private investigator and see if we can get him to find something. And then he did when he made that comment on the docks, he like almost punched him, and the guy's like, no, go for it. He does that weird little like slap fight thing, which was pretty funny. Like it looks like the stereotypical nerd slap fighting in like a cartoon.
Yeah,
flailing arms.
Yeah. So eventually he hires like those goons to like beat him up, and Katie comes out on top, which was pretty cool. But I liked this Sam Bowden where he came up with this really elaborate plot. Like he kind of flipped the tables on Meacham's Katie, where he's like, I'm supposed to get disbarred, so I should be going to this thing in, I don't remember what state he was supposed to go to, some different state. So, but I'm not going to go. I'm going to get into the airport. I'm going to buy a plane ticket. I'm going to buy a returning plane ticket. I'm going to hide, get into another car, go to this like houseboat, and then he tells the cop like he's going to be tailing you because he knows I'm not going to leave them unprotected. So they trick Katie into following the detective out to the boathouse, and then it gets pretty crazy. So I did like how they both had their own kind of like capers, as you put it earlier. That was really, really cool. And he came up with the plan, and it was a really good, elaborate plan, and it all made sense. He was able to like work with the county sheriff, the local police department to like basically set up a sting.
Did you guys notice that in the 62, Kursick was just that sheriff that died at the end, and Kursick in the 91 was the
judge,
the PI actually, wasn't he?
No. So the people, the ones who had cameos in the newer one was Meacham, Peck, and then the guy who played the lieutenant or the captain.
Yeah.
He was the judge in the new one. Gregory Peck played the Katie's lawyer, and Meacham played the lieutenant who helped Bowden out initially.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of cameos in there, which were pretty cool. The family, honestly, didn't do much in this movie. Like, we should hit on them really quick.
I don't know. One of the most important was like when he loads up his gun and he's going to go leave, and then she's like going to call the police. Like,
yeah, so
she's like, "Oh, if you leave, I'll call the police." And then like he does, and she does call the police. Like, that's kind of a big moment for her character.
Yeah, that was like the main thing that she did. So she basically was saying like, "You're gonna throw away your life. You're gonna throw away our life because we won't be able to afford this house. Like, where are we gonna go? You're gonna go to jail. Like, basically, if you do that, he still wins."
Oh yeah,
she was very smart. That was very, very true. Like, worst case, like that was the worst thing he can go and do. So I'm really glad that scene worked out. The daughter was kind of dumb. There's that part where she's like supposed to be waiting in the car, but then she like gets out
and runs
to the school, and that's when Bowden finally is like, "I'm gonna kill him. Like, I'm gonna go get the gun." Yeah. And then when his wife talks him out of, or not talks him out, when the cops talk him out of going, that's when he comes up with that really elaborate plan, which was awesome. But Jesus Christ. Oh man, this movie's so hard to talk about.
It is.
So I want to talk about the interactions that Max and Sam had. So there's that first one in the car where he was just like, "Do you recognize me?"
And he just reaches in and takes his keys.
Yeah. And he's like, "Not really." And he like was following around the courthouse, and then it's like when he gets in this car, he does that. And then he buys them ice cream. And he's like, "This is weird." But that, like, when he goes into, I think the best scene, like, this scene was in the new one, but it was slightly different. Like, it was, they changed the order. But basically, Sam's like, "I'm gonna, give you money. Like, what do you want?" And so Max kind of like pretends like he's interested in taking money, and he's like, "Oh, you could pay me as like an entrepreneur to start a business, so that way it's not a bribe or something like that." But then he goes, "We're gonna talk about value. What's the value of 8 years? What's the value of a family?" So he offers him like $10,000 and then another $10,000 over two years. Yeah. So Meacham goes and does this like math. He's like, "That's $3,000 a year," and like that's not even minimum wage. Which back then, like $10,000 was a lot back then. But he's right. If you take into account 8 years plus, that's $20,000 over 3 years. That's not very much money. So I get what he was saying. But then he goes and he talks about how he reveals that he had a family, and then gets really fucked up there. Like, do you guys remember what he said about his like what he?
Oh, when he says he like took him like a few miles down the road or something like that, and like kept him there for 3 days and like tormented them.
Yeah. Well, then he also like abducted his ex-wife, and like basically like implied that he raped her. Like, he didn't explicitly, he implied that he raped her, and then forced her to write a letter saying that she still loves him and had an affair with him on her new fiance. And then he's like, "If you ever say anything like, I'm going to send this letter to your fiance," and like he had her sign it and stamp it and like have it go through the mail kind of thing, so that way it looks like it was actually written. Like,
so messed up.
Super fucked up. And then he like says, he's like, "I did that to my ex-wife who I love. Like, what do you think I'm going to do to you?"
Yeah.
Oh,
kind of thing.
Good.
It's a gnarly dude, man.
Oh, and then he took her clothes home. Dude. So he says, the other thing he says, he tells her he'll kill her and let the plumber see the letter first. And he says, "I took her clothes and gave her a chance to work her way home." So he stripped her naked, sent her out on the road, and said like she can find a way to get home with her body. Like,
yeah,
I cannot believe this happened in the 60s. Like, this is insane.
It was a heavy movie.
Chilling, man. Yeah.
Oh man.
A good movie.
It was good. It was really good. And is there anything you want to talk about in this one? Because I feel like we'll go back to it a lot once we get to the second one.
Yeah, that's all I got for this one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just going to be comparison.
Yeah. Like, dude, Katie ended up going on a rampage at the end, though. Like, he killed that, like, sheriff guy because he, like, slapped his face. So he's like, "Oh, shit, I'm being watched." He, like, chokes him out. Yeah. That fight was pretty cool. Like, it was a pretty good fight.
Between the sheriff and Katie?
Well, no, the sheriff and Katie didn't
he just drowned him.
But Bowden and Katie, like, the fight was, initially it was okay, but then Katie got the upper hand. But then he does this thing where he pretends to, like, he goes limp when he was getting choked out. And it's, like, it's weird that Katie was just like, "Oh, he went limp. He's probably fine." Like, he didn't make sure that Bowden was dead.
Well, I mean, he didn't make sure the sheriff was dead either when he drowned him.
Well, no, he snapped his neck.
Did he?
He, like, broke his neck.
Huh.
Yeah, it was weird. And then just really quickly, like, just to show how fucked up he was. So he gets into the houseboat with the wife and the daughter, and he's like telling the wife he's gonna like rape the daughter. He goes, but I'll give you a chance to like save your daughter. He's like, if you decide to like give me consent. And she goes, it wouldn't really be consent, like you coerced me into
it's
it.
It's blackmail.
Specifically to say it's blackmail. And he
Good
goes,
God.
it doesn't, in the eyes of the law or something like that, it doesn't matter. You still gave me the consent kind of thing. It's like, fuck.
Yeah, dude. He's an asshole.
He's terrible.
Putting out
What other villains like stack up against this dude?
Not much. Well, he's in the top 100 list of like all-time villains in movies.
Yeah, but how high?
I don't know. Let's look it up.
How high? Yeah, you're the one with the computer.
You're recording on a computer too, man. We're all on computers. Jackass.
He wasn't wrong.
I wasn't wrong.
We can edit this out in the post.
We should get music for this. Or some kind of sound that everyone has to endure until you find the answer. Some kind of waiting room music.
He was
like
ranked number 28.
28?
On the American Film Institute list of top 50 movie villains of all time. And he was also the inspiration for Sideshow Bob in The Simpsons.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I
So,
kind of see it. Yeah.
The original episode when he comes back to like stalking Bart was also called Cape Fear, but Fear had an extra E at the end.
When did it come out? Like right when this movie was?
No, it came out in 1993.
Well, the remake came out in 91.
91.
Like, I mean, it could have been hot at the time. Could have been topical, like The Simpsons is known to be.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Anyway,
who's right above him? Who's number
the first
27?
movie? I don't know. I don't have the list. I just went to Wikipedia and it
Who'd
shows.
he beat?
It says Mitchum's. Let's see.
Who beat him?
Let me go back.
Where's this list? God damn it.
So the number one villain was Hannibal Lecter.
Okay.
Norman Bates, then Darth Vader. Those are the top three.
Who?
But who he beat? He beat a lot because he was 28 out of 50, so he's right in the middle. But let's see. He beat out Count Dracula. So I'm just going to name the notable ones. Cruella de Vil, Freddy Krueger. He beat out Jack Nicholson's Joker. He beat out Hans Gruber. He beat out Goldfinger. And
right. Give me a couple more. Like who beat him? Like in the early 20s.
In the early 20s, let's see.
Like not from the years, the early 20s.
The Wicked Witch of the West. He
she
beat
was
him.
A scary one.
She beat him. Let's see. HAL 9000 beat him. The Alien from Alien beat him.
Ooh, man. Yeah. Okay.
The Shark from Jaws.
Yeah. All right. It seems like a pretty accurate list. I'm
and
agreeing
Martians
with a lot of these choices.
From the War of the Worlds. It just says, yeah, weird.
Just the War of the Worlds?
Gordon Gekko from Wall Street.
Oh.
Beat him too. Weird.
Okay.
Cool. So,
yeah,
that was a nice little tangent.
That's Mitchum's version?
That was Mitchum's portrayal.
Ooh, is Robert De Niro's portrayal on the same list?
No, it's not.
Interesting.
Wait.
Curious.
Oh, no. But right underneath him at 30, Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver is on there. So Robert De Niro is on here.
And very close.
And very, very close.
But what does it all mean?
All right. Do you guys have anything else for this first movie?
No, that's all I got for that one.
All right. So we should... normally I'd transition into a sponsored announcement from Audible. We are sponsored by Audible, but I'm not, like, with the content of this one, I'm not going to make a big thing about it. But I did kind of want to talk about another brand. Like, this is more of a plug. Like, we're not getting paid for this. But I just want to give a shout out to Goodr. It's Goodr. There's some really great sunglasses. I went to the beach the other day, and they had this grand opening in Playa del Rey in Los Angeles. And these are like $25 sunglasses. They're like shaped like Wayfarer glasses. And they're like anti-slip. They're polarized. They're really, really great lenses or like glasses. Loved them. I thought they were great. They had a Kickstarter not too long ago. They just grand opened a store. And I went to the beach and lost the sunglasses within 10 minutes. I got my ass kicked by a wave, and I lost these glasses. So I went back to buy another one, and they ended up taking care of me. They're like, they gave it to me for free, and they're like, just make sure you tell your friends about us, and like we'll call it even. So I just want to live up to that obligation and just tell all of our listeners, like, if you're in the Los Angeles area, check out Goodr, Goodr, or check them out on Instagram, Twitter. They're all over the place, but they make really, really great glasses. They're like indestructible. They're like $25. So check them out. that's it. That's just kind of a plug that I wanted to do
That's
today.
pretty cool. It's hard to find
Okay,
good
cool.
polarized sunglasses.
Yeah, and they're cheap, which is awesome.
All
But they're
right.
really sturdy. So that's a little plug instead of an ad. You know, trying to put some good in the world after watching these dark movies. Okay, so we're ready to talk about the second one, the 1991 movie directed by Scorsese, starring Nick Nolte as Sam Bowden and Robert De Niro as Max Cady. This is what James Craver had to say about the movie on IMDb. Sam Bowden, Nick Nolte, is a small-town corporate attorney, leave-it-to-Beaver-type family man. Max Cady, Robert De Niro, is a tattooed, cigar-smoking, Bible-quoting rapist.
Whoa.
What do they have in common? 14 years ago, Sam was a public defender assigned to Max Cady's rape trial, and he made a serious error. He hid a document from his illiterate client that could have gotten him acquitted. Now the KG bibliophile Cady has been released, and he intends to teach Sam Bowden and his family a thing or two about loss. That's accurate, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Like, it's just the way these are written. Like, if you read them in an upbeat kind of tempo, it almost sounds like it's an Odd Couple type
Like a sitcom.
Yeah.
sitcom.
Oh. How else are you gonna read it? You gonna read it
Um,
like they do, like movie trailers?
Yeah.
Sam Bowden is a small town corporate attorney. Leave it to Beaver type family man. I think I would have cut that part if I were doing it. Max Cady, Robert De Niro, is a tattooed, cigar smoking, Bible quoting rapist. That is a horrifying sentence.
That really is.
Yeah, it is.
And then
So-
what do they have in common? The rhetorical question kind of throws the
Yeah,
whole tone.
the rhetorical question is what makes it kind of hokey. Like, it could be a like a comedy. Oh man,
It's
These
not a
are
comedy.
Pretty funny.
Not a
It's
comedy.
not.
at
a
all.
comedy.
No.
Directed by
no,
Martin
no.
Scorsese.
So the thing, like, I want to talk about Scorsese for a minute. So this was actually supposed to be directed by Spielberg initially. But
Interesting.
yeah, this was supposed to be Spielberg initially, and then he's like, nah, bruh.
I didn't put my name on that.
Scorsese. Scorsese, you can do it. And Scorsese did some really interesting things with this movie that I thought were fucking strange as hell. Like, it really took me out of the movie, actually. Even though this one I feel was actually more disturbing. I disagree with Dustin in that he thinks the original Max Cady was scarier. I actually think Robert De Niro was the scarier one. But this movie, because of some weird directing choices, really took me out of it. Like, they used the original music in this movie,
Yeah, I saw
but I
it.
don't think it fit. Like, I think it made this movie kind of hokey at certain points.
I think it was just
and-
being a little too, like, self-referential, you know?
Yeah, well, the big problem I had with when they're at that parade and Sam Bowden looks across the street and he sees Katie.
Yeah.
Like, before you even see Katie, like a good 30 seconds before, it's like an aerial shot of the city, and then you see the parade, and then you see them having a good time, and then it's the parade again. For like 30 seconds prior to seeing Katie, it's got this like really ominous music, and it's like, what's going on? This looks really happy, and then you see him. It just didn't really work. Like, if they cut that shorter, it's like right when you see him across the street, then the music gets like boom or whatever. It would have made sense, but I felt like it cheapened
Really?
the movie.
I don't know. I was okay with it. Like, I feel like it's just kind of reminding you, hey, like, don't ever relax, because this movie's
I
creepy all
guess,
the
but
time.
it's just
Somebody's creeping.
Yeah,
don't
somebody's
know.
creeping. When
It
you
didn't-
least expect it, you think, oh, he's just out there having a nice day at the parade. Pff, little do you know, Max
But that
Cady's
doesn't
make
staring
you
at you and your
act-
family.
the problem with that though is it foreshadows it too much, where it's like, yeah, I get what you guys are saying, that it's nobody's safe ever, but I think it would be a lot scarier if it's just like you see them having a good time, you think they're having a break, and then it just cuts to them, and then it has some stark scary music. And this, it's like there's no surprise, like you knew it was coming 30 seconds before it happened. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like, that
Which
was
is how
the problem I
I
had
think
with
they're
it.
suggesting you have to live your life. It was like always in a state of terror.
Maybe.
On your toes.
And what did you guys think about the weird like color changing cameras? Like when
like
they had the nightmares and
inversions.
stuff like
that was
Yeah,
I
so
never
it-
liked that.
I thought
it was
That
weird.
was confusing.
it was really confusing because it was like thermal can.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Well, that's
Like,
how
it was like a
predators
negative-
see.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, Max
So
Cady
they-
is a predator.
Boom.
Ooh, you cracked this bitch wide open.
Oh my
man.
god.
Mind blown.
Oh my
But
god.
but so it does that multiple times in the movie, but not even like in the same kind of like situation. So like there's a part where
Wait,
The
I'm sorry to
wife-
interrupt you. Important question. Max Cady versus the Predator.
Whoa.
This Max Cady's been in prison for 14 years.
He also doesn't carry a weapon, so the Predator wouldn't go after him initially.
I don't know if he knew he was like a hard-ass prisoner, maybe.
Oh, maybe, because that new version with,
what if he saw him whip
Brody?
those guys' asses down by the pier?
That's true. But before that point, but in this one, like the newer Predators movie with like Topher Grace and Adrian Brody, Topher Grace was like a rapist kind of guy, and he was on that planet. So, yeah, maybe he would fight him.
But would he survive?
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure Predator would smoke Max Cady. I'm just being
well, especially in this one, if like Nick Nolte was kind of a pussy this whole movie, was able to take him on.
Well, I think what he just manipulates him because Nick Nolte's like doesn't want to go to prison or whatever, doesn't want to get in trouble or wants to be a good guy, and like this guy has no rules. It's kind of like the Joker.
No, that's true.
Similar to a Batman villain.
What an original thought.
I can't put my finger on which one.
I feel like I've heard this before. So let me go back to my notes. Let me switch.
It was the Joker, right?
I've got.
Good.
Yeah, totally. I do have a bunch of trivia on this one. Like this one is some weird shit was going on. Like they originally wanted Harrison Ford as Bowden, which I don't imagine Harrison Ford being afraid.
No, it would have been a much different character.
He would have just been like, "I'm gonna go fight him."
Yeah.
I didn't kill my wife.
I don't care.
That was terrible on both ends.
Yeah, I can't do it, Tommy Lee Jones. But Robert De Niro, like, what makes this movie interesting, and there was a point after watching these movies where I'm like, I don't know if I really want to cover these, but then I found some reasons to do it, because I think it is interesting how this got made. Like, Robert De Niro paid, like, $5,000 to get his teeth fucked up for this movie.
Wow.
And then he paid to get them fixed.
That's
and
crazy.
I never even noticed his teeth. So I feel like that was money wasted.
I noticed his teeth.
Did you?
I did.
I didn't notice. And then he actually got tattooed with like vegetable ink, so it fades after several months.
Interesting.
So like that's pretty crazy that he went through and like really committed to this role.
I
mean, that is
not
the
unlike a Batman villain.
The difference of this Max Cady to the old
the Joker,
Max Cady,
but the new Joker played by Jared Leto.
I feel like this Max Cady was way more fleshed out.
Woo! All the way to the end zone.
This was also the last. This movie was also the last movie that Gregory Peck ever did.
Really?
Robert Meacham playing that detective was pretty cool. And Scorsese threw out 3 scripts in this movie because the family was happy, and he's like, "Well, that's not interesting if the family's like a happy family." So he wanted to make like a fucked up family that gets fucked up even more by the situation.
No. It's just a terrible situation made more dire.
Yeah. Pretty much. Robert De Niro got down to 3% body fat.
Yeah, he's pretty buff.
Interesting.
That was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, man. It was so Katrina was like, when I told her, she's like, "Oh wait, I want to see. He's hot." And I'm like, "You think Robert De Niro was hot?" She goes, "Yeah, back in the day, he was pretty hot." I'm like, "He's not a very good-looking guy." And she's like, "You don't have to be good-looking to be hot." I'm like, "Okay."
It's the confidence, man.
It's the I know he was pretty ripped. Like, there's a part where like they pan down when he's getting like strip searched in the police station, and they get like right down just above the pubes. So
I mean, when they were showing him in his prison cell doing those dips, he was fucking ripped.
And then when he was doing like upside down, hanging, talking on the phone later on, like inverted, like he got like ripped for this movie. That's good on him.
I think in this movie, this Max Cady was made to be more frightening to look at,
physically intimidating.
Yes.
Well, the other thing is this his transformation was even more intense because he was illiterate before he went to prison.
Taught himself to read, and then
he taught himself how to read. And he talks about how he started reading like children books, and then like moving up into
like the Bible,
more advanced stuff, then the Bible, and then like the law books. Like that's crazy. Like this person is so much more committed to go that far to teach yourself how to read. He's so much more committed to this crime.
Yeah, I mean, he also had 14
was.
years.
He did have a little bit longer. He had almost double what Meacham had.
How many years does a child get to learn how to read?
Like 5 or 6.
Yeah, so 14 is pretty generous.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, way to go, Dustin. You just like cut down his achievements.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I don't like him.
All right. No, I don't like him either. And then his accent was fucking creepy as shit.
Yeah, it was.
Where is he supposed to be from?
This
South.
one, this one was in. Were they in Florida? They moved to Florida, so this one took place in Florida, but originally they were in like North Carolina, or no, they were in Georgia. Because at one point,
Atlanta,
Jessica
right?
Lange's character says they left Atlanta because of Nick Nolte's philandering,
Yeah.
Right.
and so they went to Florida. So they started in Georgia, went to Florida. But yeah, like I just like you, Dustin, and the True Grit one. When you like you said that even though the dialogue was the same between the John Wayne version of
Rooster
Cogburn and then the Jeff Bridges version, like you ended up writing down a lot more quotes for Rooster Cogburn played by Jeff Bridges. I had the same thing with this one. Like I was much more afraid of the Robert De Niro one. Like I've got a ton of quotes like written down and like screenshotted from IMDb and other quotes like websites. But oh my god, like he's like one part he's like, I ain't no white trash piece of shit. I'm better than you. I can outread you. I can outlearn you, out-philosophize you. I can outthink you and outlast you. I am like a god. Like, I was like, holy shit, fuck this guy. I'm done. Like, I was like, dude, I don't want to fuck with this guy. Just fucking leave, dude. Just
you don't want anything to do with him.
Yeah, dude, he fucking terrified me. Like, I got a bunch of his quotes written down. Like, where's the other one? There was another one that was really crazy, and I was like,
I like it after he screams all that stuff, and Nick Nolte's like hiding behind that dumpster, like, could you be there, counselor? Could you be there? And it's like, that's terrifying.
Or he's like, I'm Virgil, and I'm guiding you through the gates of hell. We are now in the ninth circle, the circle of traitors. Traitors to country, traitors to fellow men, traitors to God. You, sir, are charged with betraying the principles of all three. Quote from me, the American Bar Association Rules of Professional Conduct, Canon 7. And then he, like, Nick Nolte's like, a lawyer should represent his client. You should. And then he goes, should zealously represent his client within the bounds of the law. I find you guilty, counselor. And just goes on, and then he starts talking about how he is God and like a god and everything. It's fucking creepy.
Yeah, man.
And like he believed
he's,
it.
Kind of crazy.
It turns out
like, speaking tongues.
He's kind of crazy.
A little bit.
Yeah. Not unlike a Batman villain.
One that laughs a lot.
Another parallel, dude. I don't know. Could this be some kind
and then
of
at the
prequel?
end, like after he gets burned, like he gets burned by the daughter, and then like he gets handcuffed into like the boat, and the boat's sinking, and he's just like, like speaking in tongues and shit.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking weird.
I had subtitles
really
on for that,
weird.
and it said "speaking tongues."
Yeah.
It was weird.
Oh man.
Oh, and he also bites off like that woman's cheek.
Oh, what the? Oh. And breaks her arm.
Yeah.
So in this one, the girl that he rapes in the middle of the movie, like in the original movie, like he just picks up some random girl at a bar. In this one, he goes after this like woman who's like in love with Sam Bowden, who it's implied that he may have had relations with, but he tries to act like he didn't. Like it's kind of ambiguous as to whether or not he did. But obviously, this Katie's been following him and watching him, so he like goes after this girl that's like in love with him, and like. He tells her he just got out of prison. He lies about why he was in prison.
Yep.
But she's like, whatever. I'm in love with a married man. I might as well go like with a prisoner. And then like immediately he's like, she's kind of into it. He like turns her over and she's like, oh, he's gonna get me from behind. And then breaks her fucking arm and then bites her cheek off.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly, man.
And it's like, why would he do that? Like that's insane. And then she's just like, I'm not gonna testify. Like I'm not gonna press charges or anything like that. And he's like, that's really lucky. Like that was a really big
I think he's banking on like women don't want all that attention, man. Like it's super hard for to like come forward and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's something we didn't talk about in the original one. Like there's a point when
like having to relive it by testifying about it, hella sucks.
Exactly. Well, and it's not just that. Like there's a point in the original movie where they say something along the lines like, "We can't like it's gonna happen." Like Greg, this is the part where it's really dark for really Gregory Peck's character. Like he tells his wife at some point like. If we don't kill this guy or get like him arrested, like he will rape our daughter at some point. Like it's a matter of fact, like it will happen. And the wife's like, well, but then he'll definitely go to jail. And he goes, no, we can't do that to her. Like if he rapes her, like we just have to let it go because she's gonna have to get examined by a doctor. She's gonna have to go up on the witness stand and testify, and everyone's gonna have to know that she's been raped and she's gonna have that
also
shame.
that's weird because like she's pondering like, oh well, maybe just letting this happen is how we solve this, and like that's pretty insane and crazy and terrible.
Well, I don't think she was like saying like let it happen, but like he was just like it's gonna happen,
but
and
I
then
think
she's like,
the Nick Nolte's character is like, no, like we just can't let this happen.
Well, yeah. Well, this is when they were debating whether
Right.
they should take preemptive action, right?
well,
Where
no,
they're
that
trying to
was
kill him.
different. So in the original one, that was what happened. In this one, Jessica Lange was all about killing him.
Yeah.
Like she was fine with it. In fact, like in this one, it was like the opposite. Like Nick Nolte was not able to. Like he was. There's several points that are like you should just like take it up on your own, and he's like, I work for the law. I can't do that. And then at one point, like everyone's like, there's no way you can actually take him on. Like he goes to the private detective and he's like, get me a gun.
Yeah.
And the private detective was like, initially he's like, yeah, I can get you a gun. I can teach you how to use it. And then he's like, wait a second, you're too much of a pussy.
Let me
Like
see your hands.
Max Cady is like a badass and will fucking steal this gun from you. And like, you're going to get killed by your own gun. Like that's fucking stupid. You're a bitch. I'm not going to give a bitch a gun. That's basically what it was. I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah.
But that's what happened.
No gun for you, bitch.
No fucking gun for you, bitch. So, going into like, I guess we should just go into Sam now. Double D, what do you have to say about Sam?
He was kind of a pussy ass bitch. I mean, I get it. He's afraid for his family, right? Which I don't blame him for. But I mean, the whole time he's in fear. I mean,
Cape Fear.
What? You said it.
Oh man. But I don't know. It was hard to respect this guy for everything he did. He had the affair. He cheated on his wife already. His wife hated him. His daughter hated him. I mean, he plays racquetball.
Yeah. So you think he did have a thing to learn about Lost?
He had to.
That was another great thing. Like that line was amazing. I'm gonna teach you about Lost.
Ooh. Yeah.
Oh, like going back to that original scene in the original like movie with like where he tries to haggle over like money.
Yeah.
That same scene happens in this movie, but it happens much earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
Like basically right away. And he offers him the same amount of money. So in 1962, $10,000 was what was
slap
offered.
in the face.
And this one,
for 14 years,
$10,000 in the 90s isn't that much.
For
like
14
that's insane.
years.
And then he does the math. He's like, that equates to $3 a day. Fuck you, man, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, like that was a really stupid offer. Like, why? Why would you even
Why'd
do
you
that?
just lowball him so hard?
Yeah.
That's a
So
dumb
then
decision.
he
Were
goes
you
even
trying to piss him
further.
off?
Yeah,
Maybe.
like so he offers him the money, the same amount in the 60, and then Katie goes even further. He mentions that he was sodomized.
Yeah.
And I was like
by multiple dudes.
By multiple guys. And he goes, let's say 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Let's lend $10 a day, not to mention the family I lost, kind of thing. So the family doesn't seem to be as big of a deal to this Katie. Like he mentions it, but like he doesn't go into that detail about how he like got revenge on his ex-wife.
Yeah.
But damn.
Yeah.
Sodomized. Fuck. The other thing that was really cool about this movie, just really quick, is like same thing, long con kind of thing. Like he breaks into the house, doesn't steal anything but a piano wire, which was pretty cool, and that came into play later.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this Katie was crazier. Like I completely forgot about this till just now. So they kind of changed it up. Like they set it up like the how they're gonna try to catch him instead of going to like a boathouse out in Cape Fear. They try to get him to come into their house, their actual house. And he gets into the house, kills like the maid, puts on the maid's clothing, and pretends to be the maid at some point. So they come downstairs, like the private detective comes downstairs and sees the maid. He's like, "Oh, you couldn't sleep," and he like is like, "No," like does like a weird voice. And then when the guy turns it back, like fucking like almost cuts his head off with this piano wire. He chokes him out so hard. Yeah. And then it got gnarly because Sam Bowden like slipped in the blood.
And then, like,
oh,
rolled
so
around
gross. Yeah.
And then he runs outside with his gun and just starts shooting randomly.
He just fires in the air.
It was weird.
Oh, it's stupid. And then he just runs off. Like, they just leave. They leave a crime scene.
Yeah.
And they're just like,
fugitives.
we're going to go out on this houseboat. And then, they end up being fugitives. He calls the cops, like, yeah, there are 2 dead bodies, and, like, I'm covered in the blood. So you're going to see, like, a me-shaped smear of blood on the ground.
Yeah,
like, don't
I
worry
think,
about it.
His wife asked him what that means for us, and he says, we're a fugitive.
We're doing something right.
Yeah, we're doing something right. Like, what?
No,
what? How does that make
doesn't mean
sense?
that at all.
No, it means you fled a crime scene, you idiot. Oh, and then he justifies it later on. He says something along the lines like in like the federal statute, and he names like a number. He goes, excuse me, in desperate circumstances, something. Basically says because it's an extreme circumstance, he's actually allowed to do whatever the fuck he wants or something like that.
He's
like,
making his
great
own
law.
defense.
Yeah. But then it turns out like the entire time, like Katie just hid under his car. He was like strapped onto
that
like
was
the axle of the car.
And then he gets out of the car and he just stares down this lady that's standing there.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Super weird.
And then he just goes to comb his hair in the bathroom.
Yeah, it was tight. He needed to look good, man.
Yeah, of course.
Oh man. So yeah,
the
I
other
don't
thing
have
that's
much
weird
more to say
is
about Sam.
like the piece of evidence that Sam Bowden withheld that had him all pissed off was that the woman that he raped 14 years ago was promiscuous.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had three other partners.
You know what?
That would have done nothing.
Awesome. That
would have proven
The other thing
nothing
was-
to anyone.
The other problem that I had with this movie,
Like why bury that?
I
if
liked
you're-
this movie.
I don't know. Whatever, dude.
but a big problem that I had with this movie is the whole time, like they're trying to make Sam Bowden seem like he's not a great guy. Like throughout the entire movie, they keep saying like you didn't do what you could have done, like you didn't do your job, and like the detective, the cops, like all these different people ask him like what he did, just assuming he did something wrong. So like it implies that he's not a good person.
I think
which
he is not.
He had
He's
to
not a
just-
good person. Everybody hates him.
Not everybody. His
I
family
hated
doesn't like him.
David hated him.
But other people seem to like
Everybody
him.
on this podcast hated him.
He wasn't a likable dude.
He's
But
playing racquetball all the
They
time,
make this
dude.
big thing.
God.
The entire movie, though, they make it seem like he's this huge like he did something awful and terrible, and like I'm thinking he must have like maybe he took a bribe to like lose the case, or he did something unethical or whatever. And I mean, technically it's unethical, but it's like he found out that during this course of his trial that Max Cady raped at least 3 other people. And so he felt that morally this guy should be in prison. So it's like, yeah, he fucked up. Like technically he broke the law by not, protecting this guy to the best of his ability. But it's like to make that like to spend the whole movie over 2 hours making us think that like he did something terrible, and it's like really he did do something good for the greater good.
Yeah.
Like I kind of wish he did something fucked up, like he took money or a bribe,
Well,
or
I mean,
he
your
had
defense attorney is supposed to represent you
Zealously.
Yeah.
he zealous. No, I agree. Like he did something wrong, but like the way they
Like I don't
played
think
this
they're
movie, I thought
interchangeable.
like
I think like so did Max Cady, but now you
Yeah.
have another person who did something wrong.
yeah, like I felt like it would have been if they were trying to make it like this family is going to get back together and they're going to be stronger at the end of this and it's changing.
Oh no, they're
like
going to be
I would
way
have
worse
liked
after
if
this.
oh they're going to be way worse. But if they did something along the lines like maybe he had a vacation he wanted to get to and he lost the case on purpose just so he can get back to his vacation or something like that, or to go sleep. Maybe if like he had a like he ditched the trial and lost on purpose so he can like spend a couple extra days down there and like banging one of his mistresses, I think it would have made him even more unlikable. I don't know. Like I felt like it was kind of a cop out. Like they tried to redeem him a little bit based off the mistake he made. Like it was a mistake, but it was a good mistake kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's still a crime.
I would have preferred if they didn't.
Like, that's the point of this movie.
I felt like it was a half measure. Like either make him completely unlikable. Don't try to make him likable at the end by saying he had a conscience.
Yeah, I mean that's what
Is what I'm saying.
Gregory Peck one. By being a witness and being the person that stopped it, that character kind of gets like a righteousness, throughout the whole movie.
The whole time, like the entire movie, you hope he comes out on top. On this one, you're just kind of like, the entire movie, you're like, he doesn't deserve.
I was
kind of
watching him be like, yeah, he
but,
doesn't
like,
deserve this, and like, don't rape that chick. But like, if you want to fuck up that guy, that's fine.
Yeah, it's like the entire movie, you feel like he did something, like he must have done something terrible.
Like, take it out on him,
and
though.
like at the end of it, yeah.
Not his child.
And like his
Well, the thing that was weird, we haven't
face.
even talked about. We haven't even talked about his interactions with the daughter in this one,
God.
Danielle,
The theater?
played by Juliette Lewis. Oh my God, this was fucking Double D.
That was
I want you to tell us what
thoroughly
happened.
frightening.
The honor's
That
yours.
was thoroughly frightening. So
What happened?
I don't even want to talk about it, man. It got my heart racing. It made me. It really made me afraid of this dude. I mean, I don't even know how to describe the situation, but he calls her the night before, right? Pretends to be her drama teacher, and changes the room for the class. So she goes down there by herself, of course, which is a smart idea. and he's waiting for her on the theater. And they get to talking. He gets to making her feel good about herself and hating her parents and so forth, but manipulating her, right? And she realizes that it's him, but she's like fallen for him with all the words that he said. And
he gives her weed.
Yeah,
gives
they
her
smoke
judge.
together. But I mean, he just asks.
But then he like
"Can I
touches
put my
her
arm
face and
around
she
you?"
sucks his thumb.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just fucking puts his thumb in her mouth. Like, that was like, what the
It's
fuck?
really
dude?
gross.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting.
You know what's crazy though? That makes that scene even crazier. That scene was 100% ad
Oh
lib,
my
Oh my
god.
god.
which is insane. And for how long that scene was,
Yeah.
like that's insane that they did that. Oh man! But then what made it worse is it played up longer. So later on, when right before they like, they're still doing like that stakeout thing. Like the private detectives went through and set up like tripwires across the house and stuff like that. And there's a point where Juliette Lewis comes out and she's like, he might have raped or he raped the dog.
Fuck, he might have.
Wow, that's
He
a
might have.
fucked up movie.
He might have. No, he might have. He may have poisoned the dog, kind of thing. Like he might not have done it. Like maybe we're jumping the gun. And then there's a like, what? Like that's crazy. Like there, and then there's like another part when
Well, when she's like telling Nick Nolte that she liked it or whatever.
yeah,
and
he
then
says
he
something
starts
like
getting
that.
ready
He's
to
like,
beat the hell out of her too.
Yeah. Like,
well, he did. So he's asking her what happened. Like, did he touch you? Did he
and
touch you? And she's like
she
smiling.
smiles and says, "What?"
What? And then he's like, this isn't a joke. Like, what happened? And then she's just like, oh, nothing happened. He's like, what happened?
she
And
keeps smiling.
laughing and smiling. So he kind of grabs her and shakes her. Like, he didn't
He covers
beat
her
or
mouth.
anything.
He's like, "Get that smile off your face."
yeah. And he's like, honestly, she knows he's a convicted rapist. Like, she knows. Like, they don't, like, have a fear of throwing the rape word around in this movie.
Yeah.
She knows he's a rapist. She knows that he probably killed the dog. She knows at some point he came up to the house and talked to the mother with the dog's collar. That's another thing we haven't. Like, Katie does a lot more stuff. Like, basically rubs him like, I definitely killed your dog. Here's the dog collar back, but you have no proof that I did it just because I'm bringing you this thing back. Like, fucking crazy shit. And she's like into him. And she goes, maybe he talked to me because he wanted to have a connection with me. Like, maybe, you know, by getting to know me, he won't want to come after the rest of the family anymore. It's like, you're 15 years old. You should not be having any kind of connection with a 50-year-old fucking tatted up rapist.
Not at all.
Ah,
Oh god,
ah.
that's just so.
Like,
Upsetting movie. But it's
very upsetting.
It's
Do you
very
think-
good. It's, you know, it does what it sets out to do, but it's
do you think it needed to happen? Like, do you think it was different enough that we needed this movie, though?
I mean, like I said, I feel like it was the unabridged version of the original one, but what they did to Sam, I didn't appreciate. I appreciated the strong, confident father that thought the law was gonna win, but
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
it's tough to say.
You know, I didn't think about it before, but Double D, you're right. Like, I think this one even more so than the original one is very much like law-abiding citizen.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, this one specifically because, like, in that movie, Jamie Foxx is, like, a lawyer, but he did do some, like, shitty things. Like, I definitely see a parallel, and I didn't even think about that. Like, you blew my mind, Double D.
I'm pretty good.
whoa.
You're pretty good, man. I don't really have anything else to say about this movie. I honestly, like, while I think it had its merits, like, I do think the Robert De Niro portrayal was amazing. You know, them changing the family to have, like, all that stuff, like, weird, like, just, I can't even think of the word right now. Just, like, dysfunctional family. I do think it kind of cheapened the movie as well. Like, I don't think it means, I think Double D hit it right on the head, like, having that belief that the law should be on top. Like, I don't feel like this movie had it. I think you hit that on the spot, man.
Well, I mean, they said it right in the beginning. Even the police chief said it, right? It's for after crime, not to prevent crime.
Yeah, which is fucked up. What was really cool about this movie is right off the bat, like, there was pretty much right off the bat when they didn't have any evidence of him killing the dog and they did the strip search and everything, they were like, he's like, there's nothing else I can do unless you catch him doing it. Like, it didn't have that scene with, like, him getting arrested multiple times. Like Gregory Peck just came in and he's like, you paid some guys to beat the shit out of him. Like that made actually a little bit more sense in this movie, where it was like the lawyer came after he had the shit beat out of him.
Yeah.
Which was pretty smart. That was really good, I guess. I don't feel like this movie needed to be made. Like it did. I don't feel like there was a ton of value on this. Like it did add some things, but I would have been happy with just watching the original one and just leaving it at that. Especially with how disturbing this was, having to watch it twice. Like, I don't know, maybe if I didn't watch these back to back, like, you know, one day and then one the next day, I would have enjoyed it more. But it was just really hard. This was a really hard episode for me.
Yeah, it was very stressful.
Yeah, I would agree.
Cool. I don't have anything else.
That's it, man. That's all I got.
All right. So thank you guys for listening to Remake Rewind. You can check out everything that is MDXpods at MDXpods.com. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at MDXpods. We also have another really, really great podcast called Ruin My Childhood that's hosted by myself and Kat, and Dustin's popped up on that before. So check out Ruin My Childhood as well. And, you know, if you want to help us out, support the show, you can check out audibletrial.com/MDXpods, get a free month and a free book. And you can also help us out on Patreon. But that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.